the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to SOUQ News, your source for business, economy, and development insight to drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, SOUQ News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. SOUQ News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, SOUQ News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. SOUQ News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson.
It's Ife Yunwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rotarian Lola Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching SOUQ News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like SOUQ News. SOUQ News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to SOUQ News, watch the news.
You can have unlimited news first time.
Find SOUQ News. Be with SOUQ News. Never switch off. You are better for it. SOUQ News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for SOUQ News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
SOUQ News.
Hello and welcome to SOUQ Pulse. It's another beautiful Thursday and we are glad to be here and you on the other side, and we together are making history. This conversation is something that will keep going. We won't stop. Just what we tell you, go to our social media handles and be part of this conversation. On SOUQ Pulse, we get to talk about issues that has to do with individual businesses, then bigger businesses, then the business of nations, between nations. Then we'll now also talk about donor agencies, multilateral agencies, those loans they are giving, who is taking, are they profiting out of it? Are they repaying? Are they rescheduling? How is it working? Is it really putting food on the table of the common man across board, be it in Africa, be it in Asia? There are policies there on business, on trade, on their lifestyle. How can we emulate? How are they doing it? What is new? What is happening in Europe? How are they making sure that they keep staying ahead? How can we compete? How can we join this race? It's all we get to talk and discuss on SOUQ Pulse, and it's always an exciting time. No dull moments. My name is Chuks, John-Rogers Chuks, and I'm pleased to be here. Today we will be looking at something close to the heart of everyone. A lot of questions are asked, and a lot of time different people prefer different solutions, and we tend not to understand a lot of it because the information is not out there. But hey, we'll still talk about it nonetheless. When I get back from the break, because we are going there, I'll get to introduce our guest and we'll dive straight into the topic for today. Hey, don't go anywhere. SOUQ Pulse will be right back.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching SOUQ News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching SOUQ News. If you're not watching SOUQ News, I pity you. but keep watching SOUQ News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timmy Dakolo and you're watching SOUQ News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at SOUQ News. Guys, keep watching SOUQ News for everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news. SOUQ News.
Yes, welcome back. Today we are looking at conditionalities for loans taken from IMF and the World Bank. And we are asking the straight question. These policies, are they policies of stagnation? Wherever you look at it, wherever you stand and look at it, let's join the conversation and let's also talk about it. But from here in the studio, we'll open up and look at those specific policies as they come. We'll take them one by one. We'll pick up a loan, maybe a loan given to Nigeria, Ghana, Eritrea, Jordan, and we'll now look at them. Those particular policies in this loan that were given, these conditionalities, were they really tailored to make progress? You get to answer that question for yourself. My name is Chuks, and I have our guest in the studio with me. I'm pleased. I'm always happy when I have them, because it's in a very short time. We won't get to see them. They've gone somewhere to go service some other people and impart knowledge. Sir, Mr. Sam, you're welcome to SOUQ Pulse today.
Good afternoon, Chuks. My pleasure to be here.
You're welcome, sir. It's nice to be here. So, sir, we normally start with that same topic. Happens to be the question. The policies we get to see, majorly for Africa now. Let's look at it for Africa. The loans Africa countries are taking, and the policies, the conditionalities that come with them. Are they people-friendly?
It's a tricky question, but I'll try and provide some answers.
Like a very short one. Then we'll start looking at individual policies.
Conditionality looks a high-sounding buzzword, but conditionality means the conditions that are tied to the loans that they give to you. So if the conditionalities are not in your best interest, I think it's desirable not to sign to those loan. That is the quickest way I can answer. Maybe when we move on, be able to provide some specific answers based on some of the issues we're going to be discussing here.
Okay. Now, vast majority of IMF and World Bank loans are conditioned on austerity policies. Now, in some of these policies, they are trying to reduce, be it government spending, be it increasing tax, be it cutting down on civil service power, be it taking out subsidy from different places. Now let's look at some specific loans and what was done. Let's go back to 1986, using Nigeria as an example. World Bank gave us a loan and came with SOUQ as the conditionality for that particular loan. And with SOUQ came, well, they said reduce government spending. Specifically, government spending was not given specific means of it being reduced, thanks to the Babangida administration at that particular point in time. They now say, okay, go to the Forex and change the way you dealt with your foreign exchange. Devalue your Naira. That was the side that really caught a whole lot of people off guard. And this was followed judiciously. Apart from devaluing the Naira, we also had subsidies on some internal items that were helping ordinary people in the street. At that particular point in time, let's go back to 1986. Will you say those policies were okay with the ordinary Nigerian?
Before we talk about the impact of those policies on citizens, we must situate the loans given to specific countries based on the conditionalities. This loan comes at a particular point in time where governments are not able to meet with the responsibilities of providing services. So somebody is trying to provide a bailout for you, then it gives you some impossible condition. And because you are a bit desperate as a country, you subscribe to those loans, and more often than not, the impact becomes so overbearing on citizens. So if you look at it from that perspective, the answer is difficult to arrive at. Leaders, particularly country, discipline about public revenue and expenditure. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, to what extent they are able to manage those resources to the advantage of their citizens. So if IMF, the World Bank comes to you that country A, you are going through such a problem.
Should they be the one to tell you are going through a problem? Because
no,
in 1986, were we going through that kind of problem?
No, most times is the governments that approach these Bretton Woods institutions.
But let's go back. In 1986, were we going through a recession?
No, we had some challenge at that particular point in time.
Okay.
And it was difficult. The volume of
for the leaders or for the people.
The receivables, as revenues that were getting in, were not sufficient to meet with the expenditure pattern of the government. But there's a need to balance that deficit budgeting. That was a major challenge in 1986. So, and the IMF says, okay, if you want a bailout to resolve these public expenditure challenges, these are the issues. You want this money, these are the conditions that are precedent for you to draw on this money. And more often than not, like I mentioned earlier, governments subscribe to those loans because they are in a difficult situation. And Ghana is currently going through the same trajectory where it's difficult to balance the book, and they have approached IMF in the last 2 years trying to see how they can restructure some finances so that they can meet public expenditure that will impact positively on citizens. So that is the challenge. When you are in a difficult situation, then somebody detects, gives you condition.
Okay, those conditions now, those 1986 conditions, how did the people fare?
Well, with the benefit of hindsight, I wouldn't know whether on the side of the government, whether those was properly managed or whether the conditions were extraordinarily stringent and that the government could not meet up with those conditionality as it were. But by and large, it was a decision of the government of the day to go into taking that loan. And I can recall, as an undergraduate, people were moving from one institution to the other, trying to say, should we take the IMF loan or not? And the various scholars and policy experts across the country were profiling solutions. And eventually, I think the government made a decision to go for that loan.
The various scholars at that point in time were saying, take the loan.
Yes. Then whatever happened thereafter, whether, like I mentioned, whether it's the government that did not manage that framework well, or IMF conditionality were too stringent to the fact that the country couldn't recover for it. So,
where are you standing? Are you standing here or you're standing there?
No, I'm not able to stand because
we're looking at the effect of those policies on the economy of the common man.
It was difficult. Maybe perhaps if they didn't have that loan, would have been a more difficult situation.
Okay, can I paint the picture more? Now, let's look at it. Between that 1986 and 5 years later, we were 4 times more indebted than we were before we took that loan of 1986.
Okay, when you talk about indebtedness...
I don't know if you understand.
Yes,
so
I get that drift.
Do you think...
Another challenge that we must add to this conversation is how disciplined are the financial managers of these respective countries?
Can we also ask how open or how sincere was the giver? Because if the giver knew that, okay, I am giving, okay, they can't pay back, and he's giving more, that means there are ulterior motives, don't you think so?
I already underscore the importance of countries that are going through challenges. If you don't go through those challenges, then there may not be need to approach the IMF. There are countries that have refused to approach the IMF for specific projects.
And they still
when
exist.
They have this understanding that this might be a bitter pill.
But they still exist.
And they still exist.
Okay.
We were able to manage those difficult scenarios, and they came out of it, whether it was a difficult pain for the citizens, whether it benefited in the long run. Those are conversations that we can advance as we progress.
Okay. Now let's stay on that 1986, because if you were to ask me questions on 1986, I'll tell you what I read. But you didn't just read it, you experienced it. Now let's look at the pocket of the ordinary Nigerian, because they were the ones that were at the other end of the boat. The loan was taken, the policies were given. On the side of the foreign exchange, a lot of little and small companies folded. A whole lot folded, a whole lot of manufacturing folded. Now, a lot of commercialization of government establishment and privatization happened, and that gave rise to high tariff. Then also we look at floating of the dollar. I doubt they tried it then, although they stopped, it didn't work. But that also affected the common man. Food became expensive. Growing up, all I could hear was, if you ask parents what is happening, they'll tell you SAP is happening, and you just don't understand what they mean by SAP. That was the most common used language or word at that point in time. So can you tell us what was your experience with SAP as a student?
No, I think that was the period when the concept of 010, a language that was used in the university.
Can you define 010?
Yeah, I'm coming there. I'm just
okay.
Trying to provide a background where students who had the opportunity of having 3 square meals now resorted to having 1 basic meal, because the parents who were providing money for them to survive in the school could not afford to give them the basic money they were giving to them. So that concept, so it was challenging that people could not afford the basic needs. So there was what you call bed tightening. So students now resorted to having 1 decent meal. So either you have 1 meal in the morning, you skip the other meal, or you skip a meal in the morning, and in the afternoon you take 1 and you skip your dinner. So these were some of the downside of that policy. On the industrial side, most companies could not get foreign exchange for transactions, and some of the companies went under, regrettably. But then on the
devaluation of the naira.
On the devaluation of the naira was devalued, and some advocates says that perhaps some of the challenge that we face today can be traceable to the structural adjustment program of the IBB era of 1986. But then there are 2 schools of thought. Some felt that if that policy decision was not made by the government of the day, we would have been in a more difficult situation. Others felt that there was no need.
What other difficult situation? How could it have been worse?
It could have been worse than that the austerity measure, that's the bed tightening, that came with that policy was very difficult to manage. So the assumption in terms of those who were involved in the critical thinking process were thinking that maybe, and maybe, just maybe.
Why maybe? Because they proffered a solution and said, go for the loan. Now, at the end of 4 years, the country was now 4 times indebted to these same organizations. Now, the question will now ask is, the monies that were taken in the first place, what solutions did they proffer?
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make here is that it's always easy to point an accusing finger to the other person. So I mentioned earlier, to what extent was the government of the day disciplined? What is the level of corruption in the country?
Okay.
Were this structural adjustment program, were they operationalized the way they were conceptualized in that program?
Okay.
These are issues.
Before we go on a break.
Yeah, these are issues that we need to interrogate.
Okay, before we go on a break.
If we don't have a balanced judgment in terms of how even the behavioral pattern
of those who were
manage, to manage those things locally. Did they manage those funds? Did these funds really address those specific programs, particularly in line with discipline in public expenditure? Does some of this money went through the hands of contractors and cronies of the military government that was in power at that particular point in time? These are issues that we need to interrogate.
Okay, I want to ask you this question, just personally. Is it possible, I'm just thinking out loud, is it possible to say, okay, we've gotten this money, the money was released, it was not released like in trenches, it was just released. Is it possible, okay, we've gotten this money, we'll do this, we won't do that? Because I'm still worried, why did they go ahead and devalue the Naira at that point?
No, the point is that those structural adjustment programs were tied to specific public policies.
Yes, but the money, the policies were not done before the money was given. The money was given before the policies were done.
No, there are some precedents in terms of conditionality you need to meet before you even subscribe to the. But then when the money is released, there are certain milestones.
You meet.
You meet.
To get the next tranche.
Yeah, to get the next tranche.
Okay.
So whether we're disciplined in terms of managing those monies for the adjustment program
is another issue.
Is another issue.
Okay.
So we need to interrogate that.
Now, we are now also looking at issue of transparency and accountability on the side of the receivers of the loan. Not just Nigerian government, because that's the example we used, but other African governments. How transparent and accountable were they to this particular loans? Because this particular issue is cutting across board. Same kinds of policy, a lot of money being given, and yet we still have issues. We are going on a break, and SOUQ Pulse will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
The Three Wise Men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of three men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodu Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowopopo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodu Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the eco-greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Yes, welcome back to SOUQ Pulse. We're here and we are looking at the loans that African countries and some other countries are taking from IMF, World Bank, and we are asking straight, simple question. Are these policies on these loans, these conditionalities, are they stagnating progress, economic advancement in those particular nations that are taking it? And we've had Mr. Sam, and he's been doing justice to the question. Hey, we're still going somewhere. So, sir, welcome back. Now, let's go to the last lap of SOUQ before we move to recent loans. Now, SOUQ also said that Nigeria at that particular point in time should open up their market. Now I ask, at that time, were we strong enough to compete with products from other markets?
We're strong enough to contribute. So
not to contribute, we're contribute to compete with
no,
products
to compete,
from other
yes,
markets.
that's the point I'm trying to make. Competing, we have a lot of industries in Nigeria. So what you needed to do is to open up the market, and once the markets are open, that will improve on the competitive advantage of those companies that were manufacturing in Nigeria. So I don't think essentially, with the benefit of hindsight, that the policy in itself was bad. Let's take a case in point. Zambia recently took a facility from the IMF, and some of the conditionalities that were given were met by their president, and that economy, Zambia, is on the trajectory of getting out of the difficulties they were. And currently, their currency is put at the second best currency in Africa, and they have maintained almost a point of a single-digit inflation rate. Currently is about 9.5%.
That's in Zambia.
That's in Zambia.
Good.
And the kwacha is the best local currency in Africa that has the least in terms of value, exchanging with the dollar. So to that extent, the loans given by World Bank and IMF, if the political discipline and the financial discipline is there, I don't think they are leading to stagnation. So I'm not here speaking for the IMF.
We are strictly looking at, the policies.
I'm just looking at the policy framework,
okay,
and trying to balance a scenario that happened in Nigeria how many years ago? Almost 40-something years ago. In 2 years, that would be like 50 years.
Okay. Now,
so
let's look at this too.
The point is, African leadership and African leaders must be responsible if they go into these multilateral agencies to get loan, even when there are conditionality tied to them. And if they cannot meet some of those conditionalities, they should find a way to renegotiate those conditionality on the one hand. On the other hand, they must be disciplined in deploying those loans into the appropriate sectors where those loans can make impact.
Okay, that was just where I was coming to. For that of SOUQ, the focus then was agriculture. Now, a whole lot of manufacturing companies have folded. Now, that now begs me to ask, if I was part of that particular establishment in that era, I would say, okay, if we are opening our market and other goods coming from outside is coming to compete with ours, why did the government of the day not do something to make sure that the industries were competitive? Whatever means of assistance they could give to make them more productive and lesser cost of production to compete with these other goods that were going to come that were cheaper, because that was what happened.
In my view, I think some of the manufacturing companies that had issues at that particular point in time, to some extent, if you permit my word, they were not patriotic, because one of the policy framework that was tied to that structural adjustment program was backward integration. backward integration. What that means is that some of those manufacturing companies, let's take the breweries, for example.
Let's look at the small businesses first.
No. Before we go into the business, we need to put that in perspective so that we have a clear understanding.
Okay.
Because information is critical to understanding that. So a backward integration policy framework was put in place. What this means to most of those industries that, let's take the breweries, for example. You were bringing your major concentrates for manufacturing beer from another. So you're saying for you to be able to do well based on research, you can use maize.
Yes.
You can use cassava.
Yes.
You can use other.
They can use millets. They can use
other
corn.
Local products.
Okay.
But because of the international conspiracy and international policies, and I don't avoid to make this point when I have the opportunity to speak to some of these issues, some of these companies were not willing to do those backward integration policy. So we were manufacturing sugar. There's a sugar company called Tate and Lye. So I think the company has gone to come out, so we can mention it. So it's not that we're advertising them. That was competing with one of the big brands. I won't mention that brand because it's still in the market. So I don't give me a bill to pay for adverts. They were situated somewhere in Igomu, Lagos. And there was a backward integration, and the window and the incentive were given to those companies. Rather than bringing sugar concentrates to refine, why don't you liaise with the sugar company in Bashita, somewhere in Niger State?
Then,
yes,
it's in Kwara State now.
Yes, in Kwara State, to see how you can develop and get your raw materials from, even in pharmaceutical. There were encouragement for some of those pharmaceutical companies to source. There's a particular company who were challenged at that particular point in time. One of their backward integration options was to put a water production line, I don't want to call the name, as a way to substitute the challenge they were going through. But in one breath, the companies did not respect the government policy framework in place in terms, and they had task window, task holiday to be able to do backward integration. On the other hand, whether the ministry that had supervisory oversight function could not equally find a way to see how this policy regime impacted on Nigerians generally. So in that regard, therefore, some of those companies were not sustainable. But like I said, if
but let's just go straight to the small companies, then we'll just move on. I need to read something for you to hear.
Okay.
Okay. Now, from IMF own research, from their own research. Now, internal research indicates that some of these policies also generally are not effective for reducing the debt, which is IMF chief objective. Because if they are giving you a debt, if they are giving you a loan, the major objective is, okay, at the end of the day, whatever year we'll give you, you'll give it back to us. But this is what they know. IMF World Economic Outlook, published in April 2023, observed that physical conditions, a term used to liken to austerity program, do not reduce debt ratios on average.
All right, there's been a debate.
No, this is not a debate. This is
hold on.
This is
no, hold on.
I don't know if.
No, I get the point. This is who is providing. Just a moment.
This is from IMF themselves.
Yes, who's providing?
Okay. I'm not asking a question.
Yeah, no, who's providing? Okay. No, I will answer your question, but I need to make some points before I get to answer your questions. Who's providing this data? For what purpose? Just a moment. For what purpose? On the one hand, the IMF personnel that have worked within those institutions have come out boldly to say that some of their policy framework, particularly to the global south, had not really helped in resolving those issues. Okay. And that brings us back to the concept of international conspiracy that I spoke about earlier in this conversation, that people who worked within those establishments, and we can quote some book. There's a particular guy who wrote a book on globalization and his discontent, who happened to be economic advisor to President Bill Clinton. Is a professor who worked there, and he put it in the document that most of the IMF conditionality, loan packages do not address the issue in the first place. So there's a problem in terms of even the way the loans are packaged, first and foremost, which I refer to as international conspiracy between the global north and the global south. So we need to address some of those issues. Two, the leadership, African leadership. To what extent are they disciplined even when they finally get those loans?
Can you always bring the words home? When you say the leadership, people don't take ownership of it.
Yeah, leadership means African leader, and you know one of the major challenges.
Can we put it in perspective?
Yes.
The president and the governing council of the countries.
No, whatever it is, president, that's leadership. And leadership is beyond the president, even as a collective.
The entire governing council.
Yes.
They should take responsibility.
Yes, take
we
responsibility.
Should put that responsibility on them.
So, and one of the major challenges in Africa with some of these loans, and even internally generated funds, is high level of corruption that happen in the public finance ecosystem. Or to be able to bring some level of discipline to how public finance are managed, then these issues of conditionality, whether there's stagnation, and whether the West, in spite of the international conspiracy, which you just mentioned a while ago, will continue to be discussing, and trying to put perspective into some of these issues. So it's a holistic problem.
Okay.
So we need to address it from all fronts.
Let's move a bit faster now. Remember we said we're looking at specific policies. Now, COVID came. Companies were going down. Governments were giving bailouts. IMF came into the picture and gave some loans to several countries. Now, some of the loans they gave, one of the major policy was policy on social welfareism, distributing money to individual families, not from the country, directly from these bodies. A typical example was what happened in Jordan. And now they have to measure to what extent did the number of the population get that money. In your view, do you think bailout should be given to individual families from that kind of organization, or bailout should be given to manufacturing firms that end up at the end of the day being able to pay salaries and make products that can keep the country afloat?
Well, it's again a tricky question. Whether social welfareism as a concept, as the IMF put it, to disburse money as an intervention to overcome the challenges of COVID-19, vary from one country to the other. So some countries, particularly Jordan that you mentioned earlier, theirs was a direct disbursement to households.
To households, yes.
Yes, and to that extent, it was a kind of social intervention that was able to bring food to people because the supply chain was disrupted. People couldn't go to work. So one of the major preoccupations of the international system was to see how they can provide some little cash to individual families so that they can put food on their table. So if you see from a social perspective,
okay,
it was a good decision that they provided those money directly because it got directly to the beneficiary.
Okay. Now there are still a lot of question mark on percentage of those that got that particular intervention. That is still being argued, and on their own page, they considered it not successful. Now, at the end of the day, when COVID ended...
It was driven by the data that was given to them by the country.
Yes.
Because they are not magicians.
Yes, and the
they
country...
work on the data that was provided by the country.
At the end of the day, COVID is gone. People can go to work. And there's nowhere to go. There's no place to go to work. So where should the intervention should have gone? Where do you think the intervention should have gone more to? Is it the workplace or the families?
No, governments equally supported...
Good. Government, families.
Yeah, governments supported families.
Okay.
Government equally supported industry. The records are there. Government.
Yes.
The records are there. So
when
the
government
ones that targeted family
okay,
was based on the concept of humanitarianism, where
and
humanity must just stay to survive first and foremost.
The loans were not free.
No, but then they were social intervention loans. And those institutions were set up first and foremost as developmental institutions after the Second World War to provide succor to war-torn countries to recover from the negative impact of the war. It's just like, the current Ukraine going through this journey of war. After the war, there will be some relief package. You might call them concession loan to rebuild
the country. Okay. Okay. Now we are gradually running out of time. Let's come back to the recent times. The last administration before this present one in Nigeria, also as an example, got a loan from same point, IMF. And part of the conditionalities, the policies were reduce the civil service, reduce the cost of governance, fuel subsidy removal, and also electricity tariff subsidy removal. Now, when most of these policies are placed there, there is no follow-up on how to reduce the sufferings of the people when these are done swiftly. There is no follow-up on, if you are reducing cost of governance, where should it start? Should it start from cost of the governance itself, right from the top? Or should it just go down to the ordinary people? Because who these policies affect more are the people on the street. So for this last three, speak to it before our time run out.
The point is that you want a relief, and the person that is trying to provide a relief for you gives you a condition by which you can get those relief. So it behoves on you whether you need that relief, whether you can meet up with the conditionality of the relief. That's on one side. On the other hand, you have a public service structure that is not really transparent. Some of the transactions they do in the public space are very opaque. So in that regard, the information that are open to the public that will inform even the government decision sometimes are not really well informed. So if the government take a certain specific amount to resolve certain issues, and those issues are not resolved, then it lies on the leadership to find a way to resolve the issue. So take, for example, they say we want to do X, Y, Z for you, therefore you should reduce the size of governance.
Cost of governance.
The size of governance, I'll come into the cost of it.
Our time is almost
all right.
Okay.
So the point is, what are the milestones? What are you doing? Okay, reduce agencies, 900 and something agencies to 500 and something agencies.
Okay.
So are you going to do them at one point? Or are you going to do them year 1, year 2, year 3? You are addressing specific issues.
Okay.
And those milestones are corrected. You say you want to reduce the cost of governance. Then you still have a motorcade
Don't you think that is faster to achieve if the willpower is there?
That's the point I'm making. So if you say reduce the cost of governance, so if you have a motorcade of 20 vehicles, then you reduce to 10. In Rwanda, for example, which is of a truth, and it's in the public space, so we can speak to it, the president convoy, the largest you can see at any particular point in time, is 8 vehicles.
8, okay.
So you can imagine.
Okay, what about number of ministers? Number of
even we are told that ministers,
which
is true, which you can confirm, that even ministers don't even drive official vehicles.
Okay. And that cuts on cost.
Yes, you can cut. So you don't just pay lip service that we want to do this, but then you must be seen to be doing that. So number one, if you say you are cutting the cost of governance beyond merging the structure, the institutional structure of the bureaucracy, then even the behavior of the bureaucrats. What savings are you making from your entertainment allowance, your travel allowance? Must you travel first class? Okay. Sorry, business class?
Before we even start
business class.
We are rounding up now.
Yes.
Let's look at.
So these are issues that you must deal with critically to be able to resolve. So the person who gave
a lesson.
No, the point I'm making is that somebody gave you a conditionality. Yes, I want to do this to achieve this.
Okay.
So you must look at those milestones or bumps in the way and begin to resolve them. So you say Q1 or Q2 of this year, this is what we have been able to do. Then if you are going to reduce the size of the bureaucracy, what reskilling methodology program
are you giving to those that
yes, to reskill them so that they become more useful in society? Are you able to pay them their severance benefit? Because that will be in the package. So if you are asking somebody that you are downsizing or right-sizing, whatever mechanism you want to use, what provision are you making? Once the person is leaving, you give the person his paycheck. So the person can be reskilled, retooled to become more productive in society. So these are some of the issues. So we don't just look at this vague element.
You are missing one. Just be fast on this. The subsidy on petrol and the subsidy on electric tariff. What if we decide to go that route?
Okay.
What should the government
look
do?
At the case in point. The subsidies on fuel.
Okay.
This is S amount that the government has saved from that subsidy.
Okay.
And we're told, hold on just a moment, we're told that these savings has been passed as receivable to subnational government. This receivable that the subnational government has access to what extent has they put this money into use to benefit the welfare of the citizen? On the other proposal for subsidy removal on electricity, I'm one of those who says for you to be able to go on that policy route, alternative, you must provide other alternative source of energy.
Okay.
You must develop mini grids.
Okay.
You must develop independent power. Thank God that that particular framework has been moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. So state government can invest. And thank God that there's a good example that was just commissioned a few days ago in Aba by Geometrics. That's going to provide electricity for the Aba municipality and about 8 other local governments, 24/7. This is a private sector-led initiative. So if government is able to encourage those kind of investment, then when you remove the subsidy and the light is there, that will improve on productivity and people are able to even pay the appropriate tariff based on consumption.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sam. It's always a pleasure to have you on SOUQ PULSE. Remember this, just like we said from the beginning, SAP of 1986 taught us a lesson. And for every policy, every conditionality that is on any form of loan or borrowing from any organization, the leadership should take responsibility, rule corruption out of it, and make sure that those policies are favorable to your people. Those policies must not take food out of the table of your citizens. Then of what use are you taking the loan for? I want to say thank you very much for being with us and being right there and being part of this particular SOUQ Pulse today. We'll do this again tomorrow. The time is short. We'll try and get it up to 2 hours. But hey, for now, thank you and have a beautiful day.